Welcome to customer service. How can I help you?
Hello.
Hello and welcome, Sam.
Sorry.
God.
A few moments later.
Hello and welcome to the Just Mates podcast, where we aim to destigmatise men not speaking up about mental health. Remember to follow our social pages on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter at Just Mates Pod. You can listen to and subscribe to our podcast on YouTube, Spotify, Anchor and Apple Podcast. All the links are provided in the description. In today's episode, we discuss regrets. Personal regrets, if we have any, why you shouldn't or should, things that people dwell on, and just regrets all around.
Any regrets? Just fire it off at you straight off.
I guess no. I've always had it in my mind that no matter what I was doing at a certain point in my life and whatever decision I made, whether it was a rational decision, not thought out, it's had that butterfly effect, domino effect to other things happening. Mm-hmm. So in that sense, I'm like, well, if I didn't do that, what the blessings that I've got right now, if I have any, or whatever the situation is, that wouldn't be happening.
Yeah, I suppose like the only real regrets I kind of have is like when you have like an argument or something, and then like 10 minutes after the argument, like, oh, I wish I said that.
I guess so, but then, like, in certain instances, like with arguments as well, or relationships, friendships, whenever you go through some sort of trivial or some sort of hardship, it either, whether you regret what you've done or not, it either brings you closer or it drives a wedge between you. And I suppose in that sense, whatever had happened in that argument, it kind of brings out the real you, like it is you, just with no kind of filter. So whether the other person can grasp the fact that you are like this, or they realise that it's just a spur of the moment kind of thing, it brings you closer or it doesn't. And I think going forward, it reflects on your relationship going ahead. And I don't know, I guess I wouldn't regret. I don't know. It's so hard because
that's all right. Think about it.
I think in what I'm trying to say is you can regret things, but I do feel like everything happens for a reason. And whether you've lied about something, whether you've done something wrong, or whether the other person's done something, it kind of dictates what's going to happen in the future. So if you could go back and change that, something that's happening currently in your life might not have happened to you. You might not have met a certain someone, or I think going through hardships kind of determines where you are in life, really.
I couldn't have summarised it any better, mate, to be honest with you. Not any better. You are totally right in the fact that things might have happened differently if something panned out a different way, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, for example, there's this film called About Time, and
I love that.
Sorry,
I love that film.
Have you seen it?
Yeah.
So it's basically the concept of the film is the guys in this family can basically go back in time. And basically this guy is obviously trying to win over a girl, so he keeps going back to this first moment that he met this person and trying to get with her, and basically so he goes back to that moment every time, and then he always wants to go back into a certain time to change things. And there was one instance in the film, sorry if you haven't seen it and you want to watch it, he's had a kid and he goes back so far that when he comes back to real time again to change whatever he changed, his baby's changed. The gender of the baby changed.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I guess if you think about going back and changing something that happened in the past, something that you're so proud of having happened right now might not have even happened.
It's a really upsetting part of the film, that.
Yeah, I think that maybe I've given a big spoiler away, but it just goes to show that it is the butterfly effect, isn't it? Like one thing leads to another, to another, to another. So even if you go back and change the fact that you went home a different way, you might not have come across, I don't know, it's just everything leads on to each other.
I think there's also the other element of like dwelling on regret as well.
Yeah.
obviously it's inevitable, but dwelling on it causes a lot of pain with things. I know I've had it in the past with little things, and just pondering on it for a long time, that's really damaging.
Yeah.
Because you can't change it, and if you're like me, like you like to fix things, but you can't fix things that can't be fixed.
Yeah, and I think as well, like, I will always come back to this, and I'm a big believer of everything happens for a reason. I think when you say, for example, you dwell on the fact that you didn't say a certain thing in an interview, or you wish you'd have asked a certain question, dwelling on that a week later isn't going to change your position in that company, or give you the job, or take the job away from you. It's done. So the more you dwell on it, you're putting yourself through that pain so many times when you really don't need to. There's nothing that can be done. So what you got to do is use that as a moment of reflection, and learn from that mistake, or learn from that kind of situation you've been through, so that when you're next in a similar situation, you know not to do a certain thing, or you know to mention a certain something.
It's just wisdom.
It is. It's all about learning, and wherever people are at, it's through experiences and learning through what they've been through.
Yeah, and then I suppose you become more empathetic towards either yourself or other people that are going through this same sort of thing. So it's like this whole thing with, like, if you feel a lot of pain because of something's happened to you, then you can empathize with people who are going through the same thing.
And as well, like, even if it's the smallest thing, like, say if Sam, within an argument, you say something really horrible but you don't mean to, it was just literally in that moment, and then say you've moved forward from that, and you know that you've done something wrong, the other person's accepted it, right? And then a couple of weeks later or months later, something happens between you two again, and the other person is the one that's angry, and they say something that's really out of, like, character. You can then empathize with them and be like, well, I know that they're saying it because they're angry, because that's what I did as well. And it kind of gives you another perspective, like, I should just not take it to heart.
Yeah, well, we're all human. It's a hard thing to come to grips with, but we are all human. We all make mistakes and stuff. So just puts things into that light, really.
I think it's just learning from them mistakes as well. Like, with regrets, it can be, like you said, very damaging dwelling on it, because you might end up ruining or ruining or damaging a chance of something else happening, because you keep dwelling on a certain something else that has happened. So you might, for example, the same situation, you've said something in an interview that you wish you hadn't, and for a good 6 months you just don't apply for a job because you keep thinking that will happen again. Well, now you've just wasted 6 months.
Yeah, and you got to sympathise with people with regrets and stuff, though, to a large extent, because sometimes you can't shake those regrets or thoughts out of your head, and it can be quite difficult to. Yeah. So it's
what kind of regrets do you think they would be?
I don't know, mate. I think wasting time is a big one. Wasting time or not. To me, arguments are like the pinnacle of things to me. I don't know why. Like, I should have said that. I feel so stupid. You know what I mean? But that was when I was a lot younger. When I had arguments with people. I don't really necessarily have that anymore. But I think it's just when you feel a bit humiliated or something. Like, I think humiliation is the worst one.
That's a good point. Like, I guess someone saying something and you giving them the opportunity to say it, and you kind of regret that you didn't retaliate, or you did retaliate.
Yeah. Then that's a really good point, because I have quite a lot of regret for how I used to speak to my mum when I got angry. Like, really angry. I said, this is the thing with me, and I'm much, much better now. I don't necessarily do it anymore, but when I'm angry, I just see red, and I don't care. I just say whatever flies out my mouth.
Yeah.
And that's something I've been working on, but I've said some really horrible things to people close to me. And that's one of my regrets and stuff, I suppose.
But then it just goes back to learning from it, because now you're reflecting on it and you're like, well, I know that going forward I need to hold this emotion in, and it's no longer a regret because you've moved forward from that, whether you've lost that person or not, or whether you are a lot close. Because now look at your relationship with your mum, you're a lot closer to her now.
Yeah, of course.
So I guess it's just, it is maturity as well, though, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it is. And it does eat away at you and stuff. Like, it's finding that balance between, okay, I've learned from my mistake, but like, there's a certain extent of how much time you should dwell on it. There's no exact amount of time that you should or shouldn't.
Yeah,
but
just like with grief or anything that's happened, you can't say, oh, well, you should be over this in 2 weeks, or you should be over this in 2 months.
Yes, that's very true. There's another side of regret that's just came to mind. Is this kind of motivational regret. So when you say, you get like milestones in your life.
Yeah.
So it could be school, it could be uni, and then it could be, I don't know, your 30s, 40s, and then deathbed sort of thing. So there's like things that you wish you would have done during that time frame that you couldn't have done. So like one of the things that I use as kind of motivation is like, before I die, like, I want to do this, otherwise I'm going to regret it, sort of thing.
Yeah.
That's a good motivator, as well. And yeah, do you know where I'm coming from, mate?
Yeah, no, I do. And sorry, I was just kind of in thought as well. And I think there's like you just mentioned, milestone regretting. But then I'm just coming across something on how men and women differ in the things they regret. So It says here that overall, 44% of women surveyed in one study had romantic regrets, versus just 19% of men that had romantic regrets. And that's another thing, like maybe relationship troubles, divorce, marriage, not having been to a certain country with someone, or spending too much time with someone and it's affected your relationship with your friends, that kind of thing. So that's quite interesting that I guess women have that more of a general attachment in a romantic way to regret on things.
Well, I'm more on the side of romantic, I'd say, so I can kind of sympathise with that.
Yeah.
Quite a bit. And what did you say, 19%?
So 44% of women said that they had romantic regrets, and only 19% of men. That's quite a drop.
That's a massive drop. That's like half.
Yeah. So I guess in that sense, men don't feel emotionally as attached to things that they've done in relationships, and they just move forward from it, whereas women kind of dwell on things that have happened.
Yeah, well, it's a generalization, but like, well, you got the stats to support it, don't you? I suppose, but I don't know. I dwell on things with just like, with not just relationships and stuff, but with friends and things. I dwell on that stuff.
Yeah, no, of course. I think we'd be lying if we said there's nothing in the world that we regret. But I think it's what we're trying to say is like you need to move forward from that, because in 10 years' time, you're probably, the thing that you're regretting now, it's not going to literally affect anything that you're doing. It's literally an in the moment thing, and the more you dwell on it, the more you kind of stunt your progression, really.
Yeah, but that is true, and it's also easier said than done when you're in that regret phase of thinking like, oh, I should have said this, or I should have, I don't know, physically done this. I don't know. It's that's way easier said than done. But you are right.
It always goes back to the thing that if it's not going to affect you in 5 days, don't spend longer than 5 minutes thinking about it. But then there's certain regrets that you feel like hinder your success. So for example, imagine you've got a year abroad in, I don't know, Japan, and you chose to not take it, and there's someone in that same group of friends that you've got that did take it and now they're earning 10 times more than you, I guess there's that career regret.
Yeah. Okay.
Of taking an opportunity. And I guess that's not wrong, is it? Like, you can always feel like you want more from something.
That's a really interesting point, actually.
So, is there anything in maybe uni that you wish you'd have done to kind of help your career that you didn't do?
In my career, not really, mate, because I worked my ass off, to be honest. And I had internships during the summers and stuff, and I did work. So, not really, like, in terms of advancing my career. One thing I do regret, though, is not taking, like, a full gap year and just going travelling. I did everything in, like, a month and a half, and I kind of wish I did it for a whole year, or at least, like, 6-7 months.
Yeah.
That's one of my big regrets, but I could probably do that when I'm older and got more disposable income.
Yeah, I guess for me, on the flip side, because I wasn't a troublesome child or troublesome student, but I was quite erratic in my behaviour and loud, and you know how I can be. I guess in certain instances, I do sometimes look back and wish that I had concentrated more on a project or I had put more effort into something. But I wouldn't be where I am today. I wouldn't know everything I know today because I kind of developed myself from that.
Yeah, I can sympathise with you in that regard from when I was at school. Remember the whole bullying thing we did? Yeah. I kind of regret not applying myself from a younger age, but at the same time, I wouldn't have that chip on my shoulder if I didn't experience what I went through.
Yeah, of course. It kind of builds you into the person you are.
That's exactly what character.
Yeah,
building.
Definitely. And there's this thing here I've got up here. It says, what can we do to cope with regret? There's a couple of things here I'll probably list onto it. So one of them is make sure you are not taking too much blame. So if you are feeling regretful about something, consider the circumstances that have made it more difficult to make good choices in that particular instance, or the fact that you had limited knowledge at the time. So bouncing off of that, we don't always have everything that we need around us to know that we're making a right or wrong decision. So it's not wrong or not a bad thing to learn from that, and then going forward, if you come across that same instance again, you've got more knowledge about it and you can make a more of an educated decision.
Yes, I can tell you that with I can relate to that quite a bit with alcohol.
Okay, yeah.
And stuff. If you see me at parties now, I don't drink a lot.
Yeah.
It's just maturity. I just don't drink a lot because I've had instances where I've been drunk, like very drunk, either got in a fight or got overly emotional or something, or just being a dick.
Yeah.
I'm not going to shy away from that, and that's why I kind of don't touch it. And aside from hating hangovers, I suppose a lot of my regret comes from being intoxicated.
Yeah, and I guess because in that state of mind, you've lost all control of not all, but majority of the control of what you're doing.
The majority of the shit that's happened in my life, with the exception of childhood stuff, probably going into being an adult, the majority of shit that's occurred in my life has just been because of drinking.
So would you say that's more a self-inflicted kind of pain?
No. That's I had self-inflicted and also inflicted on me as well.
So influences.
Yeah, just like other people, and like the majority of shit that's been stirred in my life is because of alcohol.
Yeah,
and I've kind of built up like I don't need it anymore sort of thing. I needed it as like a social lubricant when I was younger to like not really make friends, but to kind of fit in and stuff. But now it's like
you don't need that to rely on.
Don't know. It just causes a lot of pain. Like I look at a bottle of alcohol now, and I just look at it and I just think pain.
Yeah,
like It's weird.
I think it's a level of control as well, because there must be people listening to this that drink and think, well, I don't get to that stage that I will be so intoxicated that I'm going to make these wrong decisions. But then there's people that need to learn from that and going forward be like, well, I make shit decisions when I am drinking, so instead of dwelling on the decisions I've made, let me take away the trigger of that bad decision making.
Yeah, I was just thinking quite heavily about this, but because this is the thing with that. I'm not trying to make this like a alcohol podcast at all, but I have had good times when I'm drinking, but just all the issues have stemmed from it. It's really weird. It's like you have to have it to have fun in like situations with friends, but it's the thing that causes issues.
Yeah,
I've had so many arguments when I'm drinking and stuff. I've made wrong decisions and things, but I just don't drink anymore, mate, and I just don't have those problems.
Yeah,
it's just take the thing away. It's like I don't have alcohol, and so let me give it. I probably shouldn't be saying this, but like, I was sitting in my room last night and I was watching TV, and we've got one of these. We've got a housemate that, you know, he always has like a beer can in his hand. His new housemate always has like a beer can in his hand. I thought that's a bit weird. It was, you know, each to their own. Like, do what you want. I'm not going to do anything. I did raise something to the landlord, say, like, you know, you need to look out for him because he was very loud and stuff. And, you know, he said there was this girl coming out of his bedroom or something, and he said some really violent things to her. And I was like, I don't know who this guy is, but that's not on. You can't do that in this house. And I told the landlord, he gave him a warning. But last night I was sat down and I was watching TV. And I heard this bang downstairs, like this movement, this bang, this shouting, and I was like, "What the hell was that?" So I went downstairs, and like this guy had a fight with his friend.
Oh, wow.
Like a physical fight, and his friend left, and he was just so drunk. So that's just another example. It was just like, I'm not drinking, but that's how alcohol can like affect you and stuff like that. I just don't understand how people just aren't full of regret but continue to do it.
Yeah, I think it's just then people are kind of oblivious to how their decisions are affecting other people, and they kind of don't want to kind of accept the fact that they're the problem. So I guess I think a big thing about this steering away from that is learning to forgive yourself, because I think that's where a lot of things you can gain a lot of closure from bad decision making, is accepting that you've done something wrong, whether it have been in your control or not in your control. But once you learn to, because we find it so much easier to forgive others than we do ourselves, but once you learn to forgive yourself for that bad decision you've made, you can see in your mindset that you'll realize that I can move forward from this. But until you actually just let go and actually say, well, I've done this, but there's nothing I can do, let me move forward, you're going to be stuck in a loophole.
There's a thing that works for me that I was, oddly enough, speaking about last night to someone, that works for me quite well. It's just I call it, this is concepts, I can't remember where it's from, but it's called pain body.
Okay.
So it's like looking at the pain inside the person, like it's kind of, I don't want to say soul because it's not that deep, but it's like looking at the pain behind that. So like if you were to look at me, it's enough to say if I was being violent towards you, sort of thing. Let's say you were being violent towards me. What a tactic that works for me to kind of understand your pain is to kind of look at you from like a child standpoint, to be like, okay, where does this stem from? So it's like that inner child is hurting, sort of thing. So he's taking it out on me. Do you know what I'm trying to say?
So yeah, it's just that in that sense of feeling or being more empathetic.
Yeah, that really works with me. So if something bad has happened to me, I do try and look at it from the other person's perspective as best as I can.
I guess it's like taking a step back, and instead of kind of building on their anger by getting angry back at them, kind of stepping back and realizing, well, okay, he might be overreacting or she might be overreacting, but there's a reason for it. It's not just out of nowhere. There's a root to this problem.
Yeah, and then you can see behind that there can be a lot of pain, and there is reasons and stuff, like you might have done the same thing in that situation.
And then you reflect back to, well, I did this to somebody else and now I realise how they must have been feeling. And then going forward, you can either, when you're in a better state of mind, talk to that person like, you were behaving like this, you were quite erratic, it had this effect on me, I've done the same thing, and then you can both learn from it. I think that's and then you forgive yourself for it.
Yeah, exactly.
With regret, there's because there's so many people that I know that would say that they don't have any regrets at all, and I guess people live in the moment in that sense, don't they? They like, if something's happened, that's it, there's nothing they can do, and not a lot of people have the courage and the strength to just forget everything. So what advice would you give to someone who's currently regretting something personally?
Exactly what I just said to you. Like, I don't want to just say learn from it, because I just sound like a dad standing over you just saying learn from your mistakes, because it's not as easy as that.
No.
I do kind of just want to say, like, see what happened from that standpoint, understand why you did it, and next time, just remember that fear. Like, say like this whole thing with, like, Naf, you and me got in a scuffle, whatever, for whatever reason, wouldn't happen, but I would say in the second time round, I noticed we were both getting in a scuffle again. It's like, remember how painful that was the first time.
Yeah, so just taking a step back from it.
It's the whole kid touching the fire concept.
Yeah, of course. What you've done it once, you know it's going to cause you damage. You won't do it again.
Yeah, and it is the definition of insanity if you do things again and again and again, expecting a different result, sort of thing.
Yeah,
like, you're going to get.
So it's like you just said, if you put your hand in fire, not knowing what fire is, say from an alien perspective, and you get burnt, you know that next time you see the fire, well, I'm not going to put myself through that again. So you learn from it. And I think it just does root to that sentence, that you learn from your mistakes. But there are some people that, instead of reflecting on it, they keep making the same mistake. But do you feel like that's because they don't actually understand the effect they're having on other people?
This is quite hard. That's a very difficult question, mate, because it requires you to, like, be that person.
It is very subjective.
Most of the time, it's because that person is experiencing something which is causing them a great deal of pain. So that pain leads off into them thinking, I don't give a shit anymore.
So it goes back to what we mentioned on our last podcast: hurt people hurt people.
Yes, mate.
So I think that's what's really interesting. Every week that we do an episode, it kind of ties into something that we've mentioned before, and before you know it, all of these kind of emotions tie into the same outcome, which is literally move forward from something that's happened.
Mm-hmm.
And I think going forward, it's so hard to say to someone, well, stop regretting it, because you can't change it. Because in that frame of mind, you're not going to listen to anyone. So it's
sorry, I'm thinking.
No, it's a hard one. I'm trying to think of, for example, what other, like you said, it kind of goes back to the bullying kind of perspective, is the reason that someone's bullying someone and they're not regretting the fact that they're doing it is because they don't know any different.
I'll tell you something that I'm not blaming my mum at all by any means. So this just breaks off from what you were saying, so I apologise. But this is what I was thinking about. Whenever I'm in an argument with someone, and this is what my mum's kind of drilled into me, is to always call them up and try and amend things, because you don't know if that person's going to die. Like, you know what I mean?
Tomorrow's
like,
never promised, is it? So
yeah, that's what I do with people. If they're a complete narcissistic, then I won't. But if it's like a mate, or if it's like a partner, or if it's whatever, like, I will try to amend things, because I just don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. So my mum says this to me, like, because I can't get in arguments with her. It is quite funny. And then she always, like, I call her back, and she goes, I was waiting till you call back. Because she knows I will call back and apologise, and she says that's one of the loveliest things about me, is because I recognise it. It's like, yeah, because you drilled it into my skull when I was a child.
Yeah, no, but that's something you've learned from, isn't it? And I guess the easiest way, and it goes back to what I was saying before about forgiving yourself, is putting yourself in that position to be forgiven first. So it kind of gives you more closure. Like, say, for example, you said something horrible to your girlfriend, or your mum or your dad, and you start regretting it instantly, and then there's an argument, whatever, and then you speak to them again, and they're like, and you apologise, and then they, like you just said, they say, no, it's okay. That kind of drills into your mind, well, now they've accepted it, I can now move forward from this. So I guess if you have regrets, find closure in some sort of way. So seek some closure. So, like, if you've done something horrible, or if there's a decision you haven't made, maybe go back to the interviewer and say, is there anything that you would change about my behaviour in what I asked? Or do you feel like, how can I improve in the next time that I have an interview? Then you learn from it, you get closure, and then you can literally move forward.
It's actually quite true, to be honest, because life is just mistakes.
It is. And
because what is that? I wrote something a while ago, like I think it was in one of our podcasts that we did maybe a couple of weeks back. But I wrote this. I compiled a bunch of like different quotes and stuff, and stuck them into one sentence. So it's like, whatever doesn't challenge you will not change you. I'm strong because I have been weak. I'm fearless because I have been afraid. I am wise because I have been foolish. Like, I love that. I absolutely love it, because it just shows like time. It's that whole time element, isn't it? Where like you just grow and you understand, and you know the wisest people have made the most mistakes.
Yeah, of course. And even in not even such serious instances, but like, for example, say you've started a clothing brand and you sell something a lot more expensive than it should have been, and it doesn't make enough sales, and you kind of regret the fact that one of the first products you dropped was too expensive, then going forward, instead of regretting the fact that you've done that, you can literally, there's something that can be done from that. So that means your second product, take the market value down, take the product value down, and you will get sales. That it's literally as easy as that. It's reflecting on the bad decision you've made and turning it into something positive.
Yeah, that's so true. And it's what was this? Something that Simon Sinek said. I don't know if you know who Simon Sinek is.
No,
just a big marketing dude. He's quite good. He does the book Start With Why or something. I think it's called that.
Yeah.
And he said someone asked him what was something you would remind yourself, like if you were in the company sort of thing, that you didn't know now sort of things, like you don't have to know all the answers.
Yeah.
So you don't have to know all the answers, and you like, luckily, in Western society, you're encouraged to, not encouraged to make mistakes, but you're encouraged to learn from them. Yeah. Whereas if you go, I don't know too much about this, but if you go to like Asian countries and stuff, like maybe like Japan or China or stuff, like making the wrong decision or like failing is really bad. Yeah. But here it's like, you know, there's and especially in America, it's like you fail,
kind of rewarded for it.
Yeah, sort of thing. And it's better. So it's like you fail, you build up from it, and you succeed. And that's
I guess actually that leads on to maybe when you have a sense of regret, instead of dwelling on it, maybe discipline yourself. So say you've done something silly that it's literally just an idiot mistake, right? Instead of dwelling on it, not punish yourself, that's not the term, but discipline yourself. So say say argument, for argument's sake, you've said something stupid and you're now reflecting on it and you're like, well, why did I say that? So then for a few days, take away something that you enjoy doing and don't do it, and kind of discipline yourself that, well, if I do this again, I know that I'm going to have to stop doing this certain thing. It's like how parents kind of discipline their children. Like if they've been out too long, well, you're not playing your PlayStation tonight, and they know that if I go out for longer than this amount of time again, I won't have a PlayStation to play on.
Yeah, I'm getting flashbacks now.
Were you a naughty kid?
Yeah, I mean, I was a devil.
But do you know what I mean? It's like giving, like, for example, when I skip, right, I've learned to do this thing is if I cock up while I'm skipping, like I trip up or I break the routine, every time I break that routine, I do 10 push-ups. So now every time I skip, I try and make less and less mistakes because I know that I'm going to have to do 10 push-ups when I basically ruin my routine. And it just goes with anything in life. Like if you know there's going to be a negative effect from you doing something, you won't do it.
What's this? Just give me another flashback here. I remember when I used to play football in the first American football in the first year. You know, it's obviously played in intervals and stuff. Like as a rookie, you're going to make mistakes, and if it's a sport, which it's not complicated, but like if it's the first time you're playing it, it's difficult. Yeah. Have to remember different routes and like what everybody's doing, and it's very strategic. It's like I call it like physical chess.
Yeah,
it's kind of like that. And often a lot, I would cock up my route or I would do the wrong thing. And they always used to say, like, if you cock up after that first play, you don't have time to dwell on it. You just get on with the next play. And I think that's kind of a really good outlook on life. Just like, okay, you've done that, on to the next play. When you come off the field, think about it. How can you do it better?
It just gives you more food for thought, don't it?
Yeah, exactly. And that's really helped me.
It just reminds me of, have you seen Coach Carter?
Oh, mate, I love that
obviously
film.
when Coach Carter officially comes in as the coach, he kind of disciplines the whole team, doesn't he? He's like, you need to do 10 runs, you need to do 10 laps, you need to do 1,000 push-ups. And going forward, them kids that are in that team, they learn, don't they? They learn that if I don't do well in my exams, I won't be able to play, which is kind of what I'm trying to say is about disciplining yourself. But when somebody else is doing it to you, it becomes hard to learn from it because you know that you're not controlling it. But when you put yourself through that form of discipline, you kind of know that this is in my control. So why would I do something stupid? Do you know what I mean? It's kind of just teaching yourself to not be an idiot.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point, actually. I haven't thought about it from like that perspective.
So like I said with the skipping, if I go wrong, I do 10 push-ups. And every time I do them 10 push-ups, my arms start hurting and I can't skip as well. And then I start to lose my form, I do whatever. So now I make such little mistakes because I know them push-ups are going to make it harder for me.
Yeah, it's the route to perfection almost, but even though there isn't perfection, it's trying to get close to it as possible.
But yeah, I think finishing off on regrets, it's okay to make mistakes. That's the biggest thing as well. Like it's normal. If everyone was perfect and knew everything and had all the knowledge that they needed, everybody would be a robot. There'd be no emotion in the world. There'd literally be no competition, no healthy competition. There'd be no businesses that are different because everybody would just know everything.
Yeah, then that's and they go back to this thing. It kind of links to that whole thing of like you don't need to know the answer.
No, exactly, and it's okay to be clueless on something, but you can always educate yourself. That's it.
And
you learn,
and it's okay be shit at something. Yeah, it's okay.
You're not going to be good at everything.
No, and don't try to be good at everything because you just burn out, or you just, that's one of the things I've learned. Just maximize, work on your weaknesses, and try and capitalize on your strengths.
Exactly. Like if you focus too much on doing everything, you start to be known. You're not known for anything because you just do everything. I don't know how to explain it, but you're not known for something specific. So nobody's going to look for you and know what you do because you do everything. Mm-hmm. So if there's a bunch of people and one of them knows, 10 of them, 8 of them know everything, but 2 of them know design marketing to its full potential, the people that are in the room looking for a marketing person are going to go to them 2 people, not the 8 people that know everything, because what use are they?
Yeah, well, it's because it's honing in on certain things, right?
Exactly. So it's okay to not be perfect at everything.
No, you're not going to be perfect at everything, and you aim for perfection, but it's like that whole thing, like, aim for perfection, but you're not going to get there. No, it's nothing is perfect.
It's a cruel world.
And that's nice. It's nice in a way, really. Just to finish off there, like, nothing is perfect. No. But why should it be?
Yeah, I think it would be a very dull world. As I said, it'd be very robotic if everything was just as it should be.
Well, see light in your imperfections and see light in other people's imperfections, and that will help you.
And you might realise that the imperfections that you hold are perfections to somebody else. Yeah.
I know some people definitely who think, oh, this is like an imperfection of mine and stuff, but no, I think that to me is gold dust.
Yeah,
a lot.
Of course. So let's cap it off there then. That's episode 26 on regrets. I guess this was kind of just to round up. It's a difficult one for us to personally talk about when there's not certain things that we specifically regret. Maybe coming from someone who's older or the older generation, there might be more they can talk of.
Yeah, there's a couple of I haven't actually watched them, but they do come up on my recommended feed on YouTube. So they ask like old people, like maybe like 100 years old or something, like what are the things you regret? I haven't watched them, but I think that would be a good thing.
Yeah, no, that's a good recommendation. And you know what? I can actually imagine that a lot of them have got to that age and thought, I don't regret anything, because they're at that age where they're like, it's done now. I'm this old. What can I do about it?
Yeah, I suppose. But no, I have to give it a watch, and I think you should give it a watch.
Thanks again, guys, for tuning in to episode 26. I guess a light-hearted kind of subject.
Yeah, definitely. In comparison to what we've been talking about previously.
Yeah, and if there's anything that you guys relate to and you kind of want to talk to someone about your regrets, or you've kind of relate to something that we've mentioned and think, well, I didn't think of it like that, feel free to message either of us on our socials. We are at Just Mates Pod on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Just Mates Podcast on Spotify and Anchor and YouTube. And give us a follow on our socials.
Brilliant, mate. Thanks for taking the time to do this one. I think you kind of asked me, didn't you? Like, what should we do? What should we talk about this week? And I was just like, I don't know, just rolled off the tongue. Like,
and then we just rolled with it. But so it's been great. Episode 26. I've been Nafis.
I've been Sam.
And we'll see you later.
See ya.
Bye.
Thanks, mate.
Goodbye. The podcast, I like how much.
Okay, thank you for calling Just Mates Podcast. See you later.